What's happening in the space between the two of you, and how is it being influenced by your history, by your stories, by your beliefs, by your intentionality, and can you collaborate with that other person to transform that space?
Welcome to Authentic Beyond the Couch, the podcast where healing goes beyond the therapeutic room. I'm your host, Jirzia Blackman, and together we will explore real, raw conversations about life, growth, and embracing your most authentic self. This is your space for courage, connection, and healing beyond the couch. Let's dive in. Hi, and welcome to Authentic Beyond the Couch. I am your host, Jirzia Blackman, and today we have my mentor, an amazing individual, and her name is Michelle Bohls. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here with you and just to have this conversation. Thank you.
I'm excited to have you. So I met Michelle about 2 years ago. I was clinician looking for an intervention for couples work, and that's what I thought it was going to be, and it became so much more. So Michelle, tell us first who you are, what you do, and then we'll jump into all the really good questions for you.
Okay. Who am I is a very deep question. I I don't know that it's even that interesting, but what I do and what my mission is, which I do think is actually really interesting, is to really be part of this revolution of moving humanity to a relational civilization where relationships matter more than our performance, our bank accounts, our grades, our accomplishments, and that we know how to be connected to other human beings in a really meaningful way. So that's my mission. And then everything else is about surfing, as you know. It's like,
It surely is. So
yes,
Michelle is come tuning in all the way from Costa Rica.
that's right. And I was already surfing this morning. This is what keeps me sane, and my mission is what keeps me passionate.
So let's jump into for the listeners who may be listening, and not informed of what
Mhm.
you do in particular. Exactly what is Imago and Imago therapy, or the theory itself?
Yeah, so if you're like, wow, that sounds great. I want to be part of transforming the world into a relational civilization, and I don't want to be just a measure of what I've accomplished or what I haven't accomplished. Um, One of the ways that we do the work is by helping couples, because that is the most difficult place to actually contain all our hurt and our pain and our needs and be really connected to each other. So Imago developed out of the therapy world and developed for couples in particular to learn how to understand their conflicts and to move around the conflict into a deeper connection, kind of despite the conflict. And then from that place, that position of connectedness, their problems look different. So Harville and Helen created this theory band that was like it probably the late 80s and brought it to couples therapy. And then since then have really also added and expanded to how do we bring this idea to other domains that are also riddled with what they perceive to be problems and challenges and pain and frustration. So to offices, to hockey teams, to classrooms, to boardrooms. And but really it all kind of comes down to because most of us, even if we're not partnered, have very important relationships in our lives that we are deeply connected to, and where kind of our least self shows up, my reactive self, my judgy self, my frustrated, impatient self shows up in those closest relationships. And so ultimately, learning how to do those relationships better then gives us the information we need on how to help other people navigate that terrain for them.
What you're basically saying is that this theory is not just for couples.
It's not just for couples, but it is so critical that if you're coupled that you start there, because that is your laboratory where you learn about how you work in relationship with someone else where you have some kind of dependency.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really your most powerful laboratory, if you will, to understand how this theory works. Whether it might be a boss or a best friend. It might not be somebody that's from you're romantically involved with. But if you're romantically involved, we got to start there. We got to start with what's happening in the space between the two of you, and how is it being influenced by your history, by your stories, by your beliefs, by your intentionality, and can you collaborate with that other person to transform that space? So that's where we always start. But yes, it has so many more applications.
So many couples, they obviously love each other, right?
Hmm.
Yet they find themselves in situations where, you know, they're fighting or arguing, you know, having the same arguments over and over. Why does this happen?
Right, right. Those other couples. Yeah, not you and me. No, no.
Yeah, no, of
I'm not
course.
here for these couples. Yeah, you mean the fight I had with my husband this morning? Yeah, why do we fight? Why do we get reactive with each other? And I would say precisely because he means everything to me. And my nervous system forgets that and just wants to kill him.
Mhm.
My nervous system forgets that and says, he is the source of the danger. He's the source of the pain. He's the problem. If he would just do XYZ, stop being so foolish or whatever, then I would feel safe. Then I would know I'm loved. Then we would feel connected. So it's these stories that drive the reactivity. Not all couples are reactive. There's like we're kind of a more passionate type of couple. We fight a lot and we make up, and but there are couples that are not as reactive, but they are protecting themselves in a different way through disconnection, through distractions, through not, avoiding time together, avoiding important conversation. But the reason that all this is so painful is because they mean so much to us. The couple that comes in and they mean nothing to each other, that's when I start to really have to work harder. Like,
Mm,
what are you? Why are you even here? Why are you still together? Let's start with what is going well, but both seem very like you just want to, get out. But
mm,
usually at least one person is holding all that energy of like, no, we have to make this work. And the other person is sort of like avoiding. But as soon as the person stops avoiding, the other person will start avoiding. As soon as the other person stops wanting to make it work, the other person will want to make it work. So they're just holding these polarizing energies for the relationship because they don't know what else to do. No one has explained to them or given them a process of what to do with what's happening between the two of them.
hmm. I found that really interesting with Imago, where just the idea of how we learn relationships by the relationships that we've been exposed to or television and so I started looking at the relationships that I've been exposed to and and my blueprints and I'm like like these were not ideal relationships, but then just the idea of, well, this is what I learned, like this is what I'm bringing into the relationship between Joey and I, my husband and I, was
Yeah,
pretty in like a lot of there was a lot of information like, well, this is not something I want to duplicate, and like you
exactly.
said, we don't learn how to do this, and so we
No,
just Mhm.
yeah. So we either are like that or reactionary to it, but we just don't know. But then what? Yeah. No, and it's interesting because, yeah, we're exposed, in our homes, we're exposed in school, we're exposed to media, and that can create models that aren't very helpful because you don't really see. I mean, even what you experience in your relationship is still an interpretation by a child and not really the full story, right? But it's what you saw and interpreted and then took in to understand about sort of the rules of the world. But then when we have media on top of that, we get a lot of fantasies that are just not very realistic in terms of how real people work, age, relate to each other. And so that has also been fueling a lot of marriages falling apart is there's this idea that like why can't you be like X on Instagram or in this movie, why aren't you tearing my clothes off like in the romance novels? And just like a lot of comparing what we have to these fantasies of what should be, and then also what we don't want from our histories. So I would, I wish I could remember who wrote this, but he wrote comparison is the thief of joy.
Joy. Mm-hmm.
And I don't even want to misquote who said that, but I think that's ultimately what it comes down to in our relationships is we're comparing ourselves to others, we're comparing ourselves to our partner, we're comparing our partner to other people, and all of that is robbing us of the joy that's available. Our full aliveness and our joyfulness as a human being is available to us if we can learn how to think differently.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of couples think about skills. We need skills, we need communication skills, but really they need a completely different mindset. And that's much harder. At least I found it to be much harder. We have all the skills, we know how to do the skills, we know the communication tools, but it's my attitude. Like, oh my gosh, Michelle, you got to check yourself. This is not a loving attitude. And especially, I mean, I am going through menopause, and so my empathy is just gone. And I'm literally having to like body build my empathy back in, like working it out every day. No, like he is the most precious child of God. You must find a way to love him. Stop judging him. So yeah, that's my confession. I feel like I'm in the confessional. But I think we all relate as partners that we have a hard time sometimes feeling empathy for our most beloved.
So one of the most interesting things that I found when I started learning Imago was that a lot of this stuff that you're even talking about, even like you said, like we think we need more skills, we need more coping, more communication skills, more this, but like we even as clinicians, like we know all of this, but it goes out of the window when we're in relationship. And I think what I found really amusing was that a lot of this is unconscious, right? And even the choosing of our partner is unconscious, but also the behaviors that we exhibit are also unconscious. Can you talk about that?
I think you did a great job of talking about it. I think consciousness is not for wimps. We think, oh, consciousness is this like, sit on the mountain and hold my fingers in a lotus position and I'm conscious and I'm loving. But really, consciousness is about being aware of our own part and our own projections and our own stories and what's happening in the space between us. So I think that is a very difficult and painful place to be. We would rather be busy, distracted, entertained, checked out, high than be conscious.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I think we can give ourselves a little bit of a break because it is really hard. And we can make it more of like something we strive for to become more conscious, more intentional. But I don't think we ever really get there. And it can become just one more way we're comparing ourselves to,
Mm.
like, oh, I'm not conscious today. It's like, I think we can have a sense of humor of like, oh, okay, there I am. I'm reactive again. What do I really want? How can I be more intentional? How can consciousness is about awareness. How can I be more aware of who I'm actually talking to and what I want and my part in creating it?
Yeah, I think that last sentence is so good, my part in creating it. Because we often bring our partners to therapy so that the therapist can fix the partner. Because they're obviously the one
Yes,
that's
well,
biggest.
and as a therapist, we expect that. We expect, hey, you're a fellow therapist. You better be on my side. You better fix my partner. And a lot of therapists will collude with us
Mhm.
and will, our partners are not dumb. They pick up on it right away. It can go the other way too, though, then where the therapist is maybe extra hard on us because, you know, we are therapists and we should know better. And, you know, they could be quite shocked by my behavior, my reactivity. Like, what the hell, Michelle? You're supposed to be a good therapist and look at you. Um, but what I love about our work is the work for me as a therapist working with a couple is to not be involved with whose fault it is, who's the problem, how do I fix anybody, but really to engage both people in some curiosity about what is happening, because really only they know and only they can discover together what is happening. And then they can decide if they want to be more intentional or conscious and do something different.
Sort of like, well, not as the clinician, I'm sort of like more on the couples, like looking through it through the couple's view, right? It's like, because I feel like you started out saying, like, we come from a space where it's like, just learn more, right? Just do more. And so to get to a space where it's like, no, this is just like more of you knowing more about yourself, knowing more about why you're showing up the way you're showing up, what may have caused what your reactions or responses, and and then being intentional about maybe choosing something else or trying something else. Like that feels a lot harder than just do these 6 steps, right?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because it would be harder if that was really how we went about it. Like I'm describing more the mindset, right? Which
Mhm.
is these are not my problems to fix. This person is not mine to diagnose and treat. This is two people coming together to learn. But I do have processes. I do have step by step by step processes. I don't even tell them that's the goal. Like, oh, you're here to learn something or you're going to fix your problem. I don't tell them any of that. I just put them facing each other, as you know, looking at this person, trying to remember who they are, trying to remember who that other person is, and trying to, bring the best version of themselves to that space. And then we do have step by step processes that they just practice sharing and listening. And in the process of sharing and listening well, they do learn something. The space between just provides them with new information, insights. We have our tricks and we have our things that we can introduce to kind of guide them towards it. But a lot of times that's not even necessary. Just listening to each other. Being listened to feels so good. It like transforms who I am into like the best version of me. So if they're just listening to each other, they're taking turns, they're trying to share and they're trying to listen. And like that is actually the cure for whatever it is. And I don't have to figure out what it is. And I don't have to figure out the cure because I know that it's in their connection. And and it's helpful for them to think about after that session what they did learn, what will be helpful to bring back, what they do want, help them create a vision. Like all of that is very important too.
Mm-hmm.
But I, they kind of don't even know they're working so hard.
Can
They
you
don't really know I'm not doing the work and that they're working so hard because it feels really good. And they may be crying, but even that feels good because it's like we're getting somewhere. This feels different than up in our head trying to solve a problem.
Hmm. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, can we speak to the idea of the couple who are coming in with that idea that this is what couples counseling looks like? Like, this is what I'm expecting. I'm
Right,
expecting,
I'm expecting Jirzia to diagnose, fix, solve the problem.
yes, and give me tools to fix that person. Then we come in and Imago is something totally different.
Yeah, I mean, you have to hold that they make sense. They want it fixed. They want to change. They're holding that end of the energy.
Hmm.
They're holding that end of the polarity is that we have problems and they need to be addressed. And probably the other person is holding, let's just keep the harmony and the peace. So let's protect our relationship. So they make sense. They want to find a solution.
Right.
Then I have to see how available they are to go through a different kind of process and tell me if it works differently or better, because whatever they have been doing is not working. So they have to be willing to put it aside, at least for a short amount of time, to try something new if they want a different result. And I just have to be direct and ask them, are you willing to give me, I don't know, 6 sessions to see if something starts to change? Because what you think is the solution is probably not the solution. It's your solution, but it's probably your partner's problem in some way. So we have to work as a team and we have to understand more about both of you. And that might take us a few sessions. Ideally, I would send them to a workshop where they get the whole weekend to kind of excavate these ideas, look at what did I learn about relationships in my family? How do I interact with you? Which of these types of patterns do I bring in? And the more I bring in that pattern, the more you bring in the other opposite. And how do we co-create this? So the workshop is ideal for somebody that is not clear. If they would give us a weekend to try a new way of relating and talking to their partner, great. 6 sessions, I might be able to get them to have a different experience where they start to get a little more buy-in, like, oh, in this roundabout way, I'm getting what I want, but it's not linear.
Right. It's not
Right.
linear and it's not just coming in and regurgitating the problems over and over and over and over. And
Yeah,
what that,
which just builds that resentment and frustration and we know neurologically the consequences of this, that when we're angry or fearful, we're not learning, we're not growing, we're not changing our brains. Yeah.
yeah,
And so a lot of times people come in like, let's say, I'm a disgruntled husband or I'm a disgruntled wife, and I want my partner to, let's say I want them to work more, contribute more financially. Um, the reason I want them to work more is going to be different. There's probably 10 different reasons,
hmm,
but it generally boils down to, so I don't feel so alone, so I feel safer, so I feel like I matter, something in that ballpark.
hmm,
So rather than getting them to change a behavior, I would rather directly work on how you do matter to me, how we are safe, what, like how we can be a team. And then that problem of that person not working, it may shift in an unexpected way
hmm,
because we didn't go after it directly.
mm.
We went after what the need was underneath the wanting to work. And it's much more direct and it's much more powerful
That makes sense. So,
than like unpacking all the reasons why I don't work as hard or I don't want to contribute financially or our roles or our gender. I mean, horrible, horrible for the couple to endure that kind of unpacking and not get anywhere. but also for the therapist. Like, this is not enjoyable or fun or exciting, or it's like just going round and round about a problem that has no solution, no movement.
I want to take a quick moment to share something that's so close to my heart. If you're in a relationship and you're navigating conflict, disconnection, or even affair, betrayals, or even past wounds that just continue to show up, I wrote a book for you. It's called A Couple's Guide to Transforming Pain into Connection. And it's designed to help you and your partner move from frustration and hurt into a deeper understanding, healing, and emotional connection. It's a trauma informed book. This book walks you through practical tools, honest conversations, and the kind of inner work that creates real change, not just temporary fixes. There's journals. It's just amazing. If that's something you need right now, you can find it on Amazon. I'll also make sure that the link is in the descriptions. It's available in English and Spanish, soft cover and hardcover. So just pick it up on Amazon. So what you're saying is, which is kind of like what I was alluding to, is like that's traditional couples therapy, right? It's like you come in and you just nurse the problem. You talk about the problem, you talk about who's wrong and who's right, and you have 6 ways. And so you're saying Imago goes to that unmet need, that thing underneath the pain or the struggle, and it gets to that and it looks at that differently, and then maybe the behavior will shift, but maybe just having understanding and clarity on what that feeling is. The person who has the angst to learn why, and then the person who you may be, on the other end of that to also learn more about that, can shift the entire thing in itself.
Right. It shifts the stories that we're telling about the phenomenon, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's more powerful. And the tricky part with couples work is as soon as you go after one half of the problem, you make the other half worse. So traditional therapy, which I don't know how many people practice like what we're talking about, like very traditional problem solving therapy. But it is, of course, the most reasonable consequence from the way we're trained academically. Like, determine the best answer, determine the problem, solve the problem. So it makes sense. But the challenge with couples is that you're not just looking at one individual, but you're looking at how the two parts fit together and the history behind, like, their origin stories, if you will, like a superhero origin story, like, are so significant that you won't understand what's going on between the two of them if you don't understand where the need originated, where the desire for something comes from, and they may not know.
Right.
Right. And so when we feel responsible for a situation that is beyond what we could know, it really leads to our frustration, our burnout, and then we just go harder at the problem solving. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's like, what else do I do? I got to go harder at it. Yeah. And it really is hard on the couple and the therapist, I think,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
as opposed to just helping the couple really show up, listen, and share and have a different experience of each other. And the other thing that is very different is we, we want to spend a very small percentage of our time on that. And we want to spend like much larger part of our time looking at what's going well. What are your strengths? What is going well? And nurturing the positive memories, the positive dreams, the vision. And of course, a good thinker will say, yeah, but what about? What
Yeah.
about domestic violence? What about drugs? What about, my particular problem? And
Infidelity or.
yeah, yeah, and that's really valid. That's really valid. And if you don't know how to communicate in this different way that isn't communication about problems, but communication about connection, you have no hope. You have no hope of doing something different around those very serious issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times people want to know, but what is the outcome? What's the prognosis? Should I stay? Should I go? Right? They think like a doctor. They think about what's the problem? What's the treatment? What's the drug? And what's the prognosis?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we think very differently because I know that even if I diagnose and treat this person, let's just say they really do have a serious addiction.
Mm-hmm.
I diagnose and I treat that addiction. They quit doing that addiction. The other person needed them to be an addict for some reason. They needed to be in the rescuer role for some reason. Something. And the other person will become the addict, or the other person will leave them and go find an addict. Like, I can't solve for the bigger soul issue here that
Mm-hmm.
the universe is trying to bring them into,
Mm-hmm.
which is why was I drawn into this pattern in the first place? What am I supposed to understand? How am I supposed to heal? How am I supposed to grow? And how are we supposed to heal and grow together?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not a team sport, then whatever happens with that one person, the fix, it won't matter. It won't really result in what they want anyway.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Which is a radical thing for me to say. And people can say, Michelle, that's stupid. I don't really agree with you, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Just come to a workshop and see how it works in your life because I don't have all the answers. You might be a special case. But I can tell you that the process, the step-by-step process will yield different, um, it will yield better results. I'll say that. It will yield better results to whatever you've been doing. Either you'll have more grace about saying goodbye or accepting your partner for how they are, or you'll know how you can be different.
One concept in Harville talks about conflict, but looking at conflict in a different light than what we traditionally, even the word itself, we you hear conflict there, you already feel like ah. But Harville and Imago in general sees conflict as information and a opportunity for growth, change, and connection. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like how you just said that. Conflict is to us like an indicator light on the airplane. You don't want to turn it off. Why don't you want to turn it off? Because then you don't know which instrument is causing the problem and leading to the crash. So the where the conflict is, the stories in the conflict, the meaning we're bringing to it, all of that tells us where to work, where which system needs attention.
Mm,
And so yeah, but there's always one person in the partner that says, "Oh my gosh, look at the blinking light. Look at that. Look at that. It must be your fault. Get that light off. Uh, Fix yourself," right? And then the other person's like, "There's no light."
I don't see any light. What light?
Yeah. So typically, we can't even really agree and get curious about the light
Right.
as a team to say, how do we both create something here that's now causing pain for one or both of us.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, and I think the other thing that's really important, and this is like the hill, I'll say I'll die on. I think probably most Imago therapists will die on is that our past, our memory networks
Mm.
form beliefs. They may not be true, but they form beliefs, and those beliefs drive these stories that we tell about how we interpret the world. And these stories also determine what is possible.
Mm.
So that is where we need to work to be effective, is to be curious about the stories and where they came from, what memories formed them, how they might be true, and also how they might not be true. And if they are true, then what? Like, then what do we wanna do? So then we start to have some sense of, efficacy of, like, okay, so my story is you're an addict, and that is really upsetting to me because historically, you know, my addiction meant I was neglected. And, if you're an addict, then I'll be neglected. And then it's like, well, is that true? Is that not true? If it is true, then what?
Mhm.
Like these are the things we would be working with and understanding. And that is the basis of conflict is growth trying to happen. Sometimes it's conflict, sometimes it's just disconnection,
Mhm.
but ultimately that disconnection is going to result in the termination of the relationship or a fight.
Mhm. So, can we say that to the couples that may be listening that they like having conflict is not the end of the world? Like having conflict is actually information and
We
it's
can
something.
say it, but I mean, we can say it, but the reality is it's painful. It's disruptive to our sleep, it's disruptive to our digestion, it's disruptive to our productivity. What
But
we
it's an indicator that
It's an indicator that something needs attention
yeah,
if we want to keep that airplane in the air. And what we can say is you don't have to just live with not understanding why it's happening. Like
right,
there are processes. There's a just one weekend of your life will illuminate so much for you about how you're making it worse or ways you can make it better, and what exactly is this dynamic that is causing the conflict, because it's yeah, conflict, no matter how we look at it, our nervous system is going to look at it as dangerous.
right,
No matter what I tell my body about conflict is not that big a deal. It's just information. My body is likely to still react as if there's a threat to my life,
right.
right? And so it's like it's I would also want to invite them, not only is it information, but also there are ways to help you regulate. Like the fastest way to regulate my husband and I is actually through touch, which is my last impulse when I'm mad
Mhm.
or hurt. I'm like, no, don't touch me. I don't want to be touched. But that is actually the way to regulate so that we can start to get curious about it.
Right. So it's a if for those that are listening, like it's an indicator that there is a like it's an opportunity for you to kind of look at it, come and even get help. Like it's okay. Like it's just it's normal.
Well, I
It's
mean, the impulse is to solve the problem so that the conflict ends or avoid it so that the conflict ends.
right.
But the irony is that it's actually more life-threatening to do any of those processes. It's actually threatening to your relationship to avoid it or problem solve.
Right.
That you're in the long run, you're not gonna get what you want.
Mhm.
You're just gonna create more frustration, more pain. The avoider's gonna avoid more. The other person's going to pursue harder to get answers. And, yeah, that really their best option here is to get to
Right.
treatment as soon as
Help. Right.
possible to get that airplane in to, to have to
Service.
open it up and look inside. But in this case, it'd be the 2 of them. It's
Right.
not a therapist, it's not an expert, it's not somebody who's going to judge you. It's the 2 of you looking inside that engine going, "Oh, I have this belief that I don't matter, and that's why I'm doing this behavior.
Mhm.
Oh, that's interesting. I have the same belief, but I'm doing a different behavior.
Mhm.
Wow, what if we actually coordinated on helping each other know how much we matter and we stopped trying to control the behaviors?" Could that work? Well, we don't know. We have to go away and do that experiment and see, does this plane still fly when we rewire it that way?
Hmm.
But yeah, I think the big thing is to not stay in conflict, stay in those dynamics because the long-term prognosis is pretty bad.
That's
Yeah.
good. Don't stay in the conflict. Don't stay in that because the long term is pretty bad.
Yeah. You think you're trying to save the plane, but you're actually not. Like you really need to get that plane, like open it up and really understand why are we fighting about this? What's the emotional irrational reason that we're fighting about this thing? And what oftentimes, and you've seen this in your workshops, like people are like, wow, we thought we were fighting about this and that. And turns out we're only fighting about this one thing. And now that we know what it is, we can address it more directly.
Hmm.
And couples feel very empowered. And instead of this fear that, oh my God, I'm going to be judged or shamed or bad, instead they feel really empowered.
If you can give a message to a couple that may be listening and maybe on the fence right now, like, I don't know if we're even wanting to do this couple thing, couple therapy, or go to a workshop, like, what would you say to this couple right now?
I'm sure it makes sense. I'm sure their hesitations make sense, their fears. And it can be really hard to work through the financial barriers, the fears, the reality of like childcare or dog care and probably the only thing I could say would be that if you've not invested time and money and energy into making your relationship better, it could be the thing that changes everything. Like a good relationship makes us better at work, makes us better parents, makes us better friends, makes us healthier. Like the research is out there to say that relationships have the biggest impact on our overall life satisfaction. And so if you haven't invested, then I would say try to find a way. Try to find a way to overcome your fear, your resistance, your financial challenges, the childcare. Like find some way to invest because if you don't invest, you cannot reap the rewards.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it makes sense that it's for a variety of reasons. For me, for years, it was, oh, my husband is shy and doesn't like to share. And, I'm more the sharing one. And I was worried about how he would feel. But the reality is those are the people that love it the most because it's structured and there's nobody's asking them a question out of the blue. They're not on the spot. And yeah, they actually get the most excited because they're like, oh my gosh, there's a process. It's almost like engineering. There's like a workbook and I know what to do. And so my husband became the biggest fan and he was my excuse or my reason to not go.
Mhm. Yeah, I found that too. And I'm sure even people who may be listening, you might have one person that's really enthusiastic or, wanting to do it and looking, but then you might have another person that's sort of like maybe on the fence or not ready or not don't want to talk about this stuff or don't want to go. And I found that too with my husband. Like, I'm the one that was like, well, let's do this, let's try this, let's this. And he was more a little more reserved about it. But now he's like the biggest advocate. Like telling everyone like, "This is great, you need to try this," because you do feel heard, you don't feel beat up. We would come out of therapy, couples work together, and he'll be like, "That was a great session, like, I feel really good," um, about what we just talked about. So, yeah, we wanna encourage you if you're listening out there and you may be on the fence if this is something that you wanna try, just like Michelle just shared, like, just jump in, just try it.
These workshops are called Getting the Love You Want off the book of the same title. And they're everywhere. So you have them in San Antonio.
Yeah.
They're everywhere, literally worldwide in multiple languages every weekend. So, you know, no matter what, people can find a workshop. And if you have some reason, like maybe one of you is famous or you have a political career or you're a principal of a school and you just don't, maybe a small town, there's a digital version which you can do self-study at home with like 3 to 4 hours a week in 8 weeks. So, there's a way for everyone to access this information, like, shift work, things like that make it hard for people to take off a whole weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So there's ways to do it. And yeah, I just really encourage, I think everybody should do this workshop. I mean, just like yeah, I just think it's so powerful. And most of the time, like I was doing there's a version of the couples workshop that's specifically about money. And I was doing it last weekend. And this guy says, "Oh my gosh, I should have done this 30 years ago." I mean, that's such the common response is, why is this not in the schools? This is so helpful. And then he's like, and I'm helping other people with money. This is going to be really helpful for me, because he's helping people, but he wasn't understanding what people were making things mean. And so that's what the workshop helps you understand, what you're making your partner's behaviors mean and why, and then empowering you as a couple to rework that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a great investment.
So you can do couples work, you could do couples therapy, or you can sign up for a workshop. You could do it digitally, you could do it in person, you could do it virtually. It's all around the world. So no excuses, couples. There's something for everybody. And it's better than doing nothing and hoping that things shift.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Authentic Beyond the Couch. I hope today's conversation brought you insight, comfort, and simply reminded you that you are not alone on this journey. If you found this episode meaningful, please follow the podcast, leave a review, and share it with someone who may need to hear it. You can connect with me on Instagram at authenticbeyond_the couch for more resources and authentic conversations. Until next time, keep showing up as your most truthful self, and remember, healing can continue even beyond the couch.